And that's the burden that many, I'll say Americans, many college graduates, many whatever, we have to realize that there's another way to do things. And that's not always easy to accept. And I am guilty of not being able to accept that as well in many instances.
And I think you talked about too, if I remember correctly, about those farmers needing to gain the respect and trust of those coming into their culture, into their home, into their, safe place. And that happens around the world and how we build bridges and how we you know, be able to gain peace with one another and trust. And so how did you do that? How did you gain their trust and vice versa?
It was
I
actually
guess
pretty,
throughout your whole life, not just on the farm, but within the CIA and talking about how to really see people and what their intentions are and how they could see you.
it's, and as far as in the Peace Corps, it was very easy. I ate their food. Their food is very different than what I grew up on in Ohio. There's a delicacy called stuffed sheep stomach, and that may not appeal to everybody. It was so funny. I'd worked with this one farmer all day, and he invited me home for dinner, and he put this thing on the plate in front of me, and I said, "What is it?" He said, "Eat it, then I'll tell you." Which is probably a good thing because if he'd have said it's stuffed sheep stomach, I might not have enjoyed it quite as much as I did, and it turned out to be delicious. And that's my way of saying we have to reach out to them. If you are pick a term, a Westerner, an American, a Canadian, or whatever term you wish to use, if you are going to them, we have to get them to accept us, not the other way around. So one of the easy ways really was to was to eat their food. And the other way is to demonstrate that you can work hard. When I was in Gabon with the Peace Corps, the driver for the project that I was on, I was responsible for all the farm machinery. On that project, the driver was like, "Hey, come on, I'm going to go clear some land this weekend. Do you want to come with me?" What do I know? I was 22 years old at the time. Sure, why not? Well, so what we did was that we walked about a mile into the jungle. The jungle is a very hungry place. It will eat you if it can. And then he and I spent the day chopping down trees with an axe. And at the end of the day, I grew up on a farm. I was used to hard work, but I hadn't done it in a while. So both my hands were covered in blisters. And so we went back to the bar that he owned in town, and he's looking at my hands. He talked about those blisters on my hand for weeks. He would tell everybody, "Man, you should have seen what Jeff was doing. You should have seen the blisters he got on his hands. This guy's such a doing this hard work." Nothing I could have done could have replaced that. So I adopted his culture. I went to him. I helped him do his work. And that's where we have to put the other people first. And once again, that's hard to do because it has to do with our egos. How do you put your ego aside? And I think probably in my book, I talk about that as well. How do you put your ego aside and accept people who are very different as having value or being valuable and being able to make a contribution? He accepted me because I proved to him I could do manual labor, and I had the blisters to prove it. That's all he talked about for weeks. But
You gave him, sorry, your time, your time to help him and how much that means to people because when we feel that help, we truly feel like we're being seen and valued for wanting to, prosper in life and have abundance. And when we do that together, that bond just, I find, strengthens so much.
absolutely, that's absolutely correct. And that was one of the things that I was able to do as a Peace Corps volunteer was to learn how do you check your ego? How do you put it to the side? Even fast forward a couple decades, my training in the agency to be an operations officer. One of the things you have to learn is you have to learn how to check your ego. And I can give you an example of one of the training exercises we went through. Um, I was meeting someone, and at the training facility, they have a lot of small ponds where everybody can go fishing. And so this particular person that I was the training exercise was for me to pitch him to recruit him. And so he's like, "Oh, well, we'll go out on our boat. We'll go out on my boat." Okay. So we're on this little boat on this little lake and we're fishing. And when you go to ask a question, you inhale. Every time he heard me inhale to ask a question, he would go, he's reeling in these fish real slow. And every time I tried to talk to him, he shushed me like that. This went on for about a half an hour. And I really wanted to break his neck and feed him to the fish. I didn't. I maintained my ego in check, which is that's the lesson. We got on shore and then I finished with the exercise successfully. But how do we learn to keep our ego in check and not let it get the best of us? And that's important in pretty much everything we do, whether it's having a relationship with someone, being in a marriage, being a father, or whatever the case may be. We we can't let our ego get the better of us. And that's trust me, when I was the work I was doing with the agency, that was something that they taught us early and often.
Such a great lesson. And, we continue to evolve throughout life and learning those lessons where we need to check those egos and humble ourselves and understand that we don't have all the answers and we have still always so much to learn for our entire life. And no portion of it, should we stop learning or evolving. Those are some great lessons. And I could sit here all day and hear about all the things and the training that you guys experience. I think it's outstanding and how it builds you to be the leaders that you truly are for all of us.